WayneCounty.info gives you one-click access to local headlines, information, events, photos, opinion, sports, government updates, emergency alerts, obituaries, and more. Sign up for the WayneCounty.info daily news summary email so you don't miss a thing.
And welcome to the Third Sector. I'm your host, Tamara Brinkman. In our society, there are three sectors: the public, the private, and the nonprofit. And it's that third sector that we are here to talk about today. Joining me on today's episode are Teresa Clemmons, the Executive Director for A Better Way, and Brice Johnson, who is the Executive Director of Central Indiana American Red Cross. So starting us off today is Teresa, joining us from A Better Way. My tongues are tied this morning. Thank you so much for joining, Teresa. How are you today?
Oh, I'm just fine, and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much again. Let's jump right in and just tell us about A Better Way, when your organization got started, and how you've gone from that point to where you are today.
Okay. Well, actually, we've been around a long time. 1898 is our earliest date of history, and we provided all different services back then. And over the years, we've morphed into what we are now. We are most known for being a domestic violence shelter. We've been doing that work since 1978, and we serve now an 8-county area, not just in domestic violence, but also in a few other services that I can bring you up to speed on. Okay. We provide a rape crisis center for victims of sexual assault, and we are also, in a quite a large way, working in suicide prevention, both with a hotline and with chat and text services. So we kind of have a broad spectrum of services, but all of them center around people who are in crisis and trying to help them move forward with life. Okay.
While you were sharing that with us, we put up the website, abetterway.org, and then we've also got your crisis line up, which is 765-288-HELP. So for our viewing audience, because this show is limited to Wayne County, and I'll let you list all the counties that you cover here, I do want to make sure everybody knows that A Better Way took over what was formerly known in our community as Genesis of Richmond. And so we're lucky that A Better Way, with their larger footprint and more staff and just sort of whole picture of crisis support help that Teresa was just mentioning, is able to come in. And so if you knew of Genesis of Richmond, you'll now hear it more as A Better Way. So I just want to make sure for those watching today that we kind of just help our audience know a little bit more. Can you speak a little bit to the mission of the organization? I mean, you've talked about what it does, but I mean, what is your mission?
Well, we are, our mission is to reduce domestic violence, sexual assault, homelessness, and suicide. And we do that through service and shelter and crisis intervention and prevention initiatives. Mm-hmm. And so we try to not only help people who are in crisis, but help people learn ways to avoid finding themselves in this state of crisis.
Okay. Can you tell us about your staff, or so who's helping, who's supporting, how large is it, and maybe mention too how that works with all the counties that you serve as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a staff of about 60 people right now, and I can tell you that what we look for when we're bringing people on is people who are very caring and compassionate individuals, because as I said, we're working with people who have experienced a lot of trauma. And so you have to be somebody who really wants to work with people where they are and not where we think they should be. And so a lot of times our staff, our experiences and education and other qualifications are pretty broad, because we need people who can provide counseling, we need people who can provide advocacy, but also we need people who will offer a listening ear. And so what it takes to do all those different things varies. So we have quite a diverse group of people, young, old, and everything in between. We try to be representative in our staffing so that anyone who comes our way can feel comfortable and feel that there is someone that can relate to what they're going through. So we're very intentional about making sure that we're a diverse group, and we've been really successful with that. Our biggest problem right now is just filling open slots, which everyone that I know that's trying to run an organization has that same problem. Yeah. But we do, we have a wonderful group of people that are ready to help.
That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about how your organization is funded.
Okay, that's another thing that's pretty diverse. We have some federal funds that come in to provide things like transitional housing and rapid rehousing for people who are homeless or in states of domestic violence. We have state funding that provides, that's where the largest set of funds come from, and they help us operate our shelter, provide non-residential services for all the groups that we serve. And then we receive some funds from local foundations, from United Ways. We also receive help from philanthropic groups that are specific to serving the populations that we work with. And then we also, of course, do fundraisers to bring in discretionary funds that help us fill in the gaps that those other funding sources do not cover.
So if folks are watching and they wanted to connect with you in terms of volunteerism, do you have to have any kind of credentialing, or can you just sort of, as you maybe mentioned, be a good listener with an open heart, and, you know, does that qualify you as well?
It sure does. When we're talking volunteers, what we try to do is, just as we do with the people we serve, we look at volunteers and where they are, and so we meet you there. If you are somebody who has a couple of hours a week to give, we figure out how we can best use you in the time that you have available. We look at your skill set and primarily what your interests are, and then match you up. If you are somebody who can't obligate a specific amount of time per week, but you'd like to help us out, there are people who come in and help us cook dinner. There are people who, you know, we put together work groups, and they might come and just help us keep the place cleaned up and pretty and all of that stuff. So really, where your qualifications and skill sets are and your interests, that's where you will land.
Right. So just quickly, with the counties you serve, we've got, I'm going to give this a shot. Now, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I'm going to try. Wayne and Union counties, Randolph, Henry, Delaware, and then Rush and Fayette.
Not Rush, but Rush. We do serve Fayette, and then we also serve Blackford and Jay and Henry.
Okay. Blackford and Jay. Okay, good. All right, well, I did okay. It was close.
You did.
So anybody that's listening, if you go to abetterway.org, you can find out information from them, and they can connect you with the area that, you know, connect you with the office that you are closest to best serve your needs. Tell us about the impact that your organization has on the community, and what would happen if you guys weren't here in our community?
Honestly, it's hard to envision that. We serve a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and the way I look at it is there really isn't much work out there that's more important than what we do, because when people are in crisis, if there isn't some form of intervention to help them along, we know that they have difficulty in figuring out what next steps are. And so by preventing crises or serving people who are finding themselves in that, we are helping the future of the communities we serve, because we can stop people from being in situations where there's violence, where kids can't receive the support they need because their parent might be struggling in ways where it prevents proper parenting. Not blaming anybody, just saying it happens because your focus is moved to something else. And so whether it's suicide, depression, those kinds of things, or someone in abusive situations, or someone who found themselves assaulted last night, in all those cases, there is severe need for support. And we're that place that we can't do everything, but we can help you see that there's hope for tomorrow, and see where you can get the kind of help that you need to be able to move on and live your best life. And if there was one thing I would want people to know about A Better Way, is we really strive to help you get what you want. We don't tell you what you should want or tell you what you should do. We say, what can we do to help you live your best life? And whatever that is, either we do it ourselves or we help you find someone who can help you along.
Oh, well, we're very fortunate that you guys have stepped up and embraced Wayne County as one of the counties that your organization will wrap its arms around and serve and support in those three really intentional ways across, like you said, it's all serious trauma that those folks are dealing with. So thanks for being in the community and supporting our folks here. And obviously, thank you, Teresa, for joining me today and sharing with our community the great work that you do and that A Better Way does. And when we come back, Brice Johnson from American Red Cross will be joining me. Stay with us. Welcome back. Brice Johnson is going to be joining me next. He is the Executive Director of Central Indiana American Red Cross. Brice, welcome to the Third Sector.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, likewise. Glad that you could make it. So let's jump right in. Obviously, tell us about American Red Cross. All you want to share. We all know it's been around for a really long time. You're welcome to give us back the start point, but
obviously American Red Cross has been around for quite some time. First receiving its congressional charter back in 1882. This was birthed out of a larger movement that was going on around the world. The Red Cross services have really stayed true to the mission, which is to really alleviate suffering in the face of emergencies for folks that are experiencing that. We do that through the power of volunteers and the generosity of our donors. The Red Cross is a unique nonprofit because we do have a congressional charter. It's slightly different than kind of a normal 501(c) or nonprofits in that way, but we do completely rely on donations from the American people to run our operations. So I oversee Central Indiana, which is what we call a chapter. That is 17 counties that stretch all the way from Vermilion County all the way kind of across the breadth of the state and over to Richmond and Wayne County. So I travel a lot throughout the chapter and meet with our volunteers and help provide the services that we have going on.
Wow, that's quite a footprint that you've got there. That's a lot of geography to have to cover. So for our folks that are, the viewers for this show are just Wayne County. Tell us about Red Cross in Wayne County.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously the last couple of years has been an interesting time for everybody to, learn how to flex in the midst of the COVID environment. We do have an office right in downtown Richmond, which we are, very happy with. We love being a part of that downtown area. And I think we'll start to see a lot more activity around that office as we start to open things up. Obviously, as a public health organization, we've been hyper kind of sensitive to, maintaining COVID protocols and, making sure that we're doing everything we can to stop the spread of COVID. In the midst of, the last couple of years, we've really continued to deliver our services. We have been doing obviously blood drives and maintaining our blood donations. We've seen a lot of families that have been helped after home fire or other disasters in the area. And we continue to serve our military families, military and veteran families. That's a big piece of what we do too, our services to the armed forces. So all of those things have continued throughout COVID. We have had to flex. We've been responding to some of those things virtually, but now we're kind of coming through this period where our volunteers are getting out in the community and we're able to put a blanket and an arm around somebody that's experienced, a tragedy and really walk through the recovery process and get them back on their feet. So it's been amazing to see how our volunteers have done that.
Mm-hmm. So what are your goals for for the Wayne County American Red Cross office for, say, in the next year? I mean, it feels like that might feel like the 5-year question used to be, like, what's your goal for 1 year? But
well, what we're really trying to do, we have a set of some focus counties within the chapter, and Wayne County is actually one of those counties that's really a focus for us. What we're looking to do is we're really trying to increase representation on our board of directors from the area. Mm-hmm. We also have committees that serve in several different capacities, and so we're trying to increase the number of folks that are representing Wayne County in those spaces, as well as our volunteers that are doing the disaster recovery work and volunteering at blood drives and those types of things. So what we really want to see is a move toward greater community resiliency, that ability for a community to bounce back if a disaster happens. If we see a tornado go through Richmond, or we see significant flooding, or multiple home fires, those types of things, we want to see a community that's able to really bounce back from those things fairly quickly. And so that's on us to help the community do some training, some preparedness, and be aware of some of those things. It comes down to neighbors that are willing to volunteer and install smoke alarms in their neighborhood. And those are some of the things that we're really working toward. We've got 14 disaster volunteers within the chapter, within the county. And we'd like to see that number go up. And our blood donation number needs to increase across the board. We're experiencing a blood crisis nationwide. And so we're really encouraging people to get out and visit our website, find a drive where they can give blood. And we'd like to see all those things, move in the upward direction. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, we have had a tornado here in Richmond at one time. It was brief and it wasn't huge, but it definitely created some damage that disrupted some businesses and so forth. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility. And then as far as you mentioned the blood drives, and you mentioned being able to go into the website. So I assume that's the best way if folks are looking to connect with you guys. We have here redcross.org to figure out what they can do locally here in Wayne County if they're looking for a blood drive, or if they're looking for, is opportunity to volunteer.
That website is really just a great kind of one-stop shop for everything Red Cross. You can find out about it. Obviously we have disasters that come up nationwide, and people feel like they would like to give back, and that could be in donating blood. It could be in financial donations, those types of things. They might want to donate their time and become a disaster response volunteer. Mm-hmm. All of that can be found on that redcross.org site. You can put in your zip code and find all of the upcoming blood drives. And we do have some apps that are available as well. People can, kind of pre-fill out their health history and those types of things. So, when they get to the blood drive, it actually expedites their time waiting. So.
Okay, well, good to know. So you you cover, what'd you say, 17 counties?
Yeah.
What's your staff look like? How many folks besides you are out there,
Yeah.
boots on the ground?
Well, 90% of the work that we do is really done by volunteers. And so we have dedicated to our chapter, we have 3 staff people, myself, and then we have 2 staff people that work in what we call disaster cycle services. So that's disaster preparedness and disaster response. And they are dedicated really to focus on all of those exact same 17 counties that where I spend my time. And so they work with our volunteers directly and make sure that we're delivering, the level of service and the programs that we can within the community. Now, we do have some other staff people that span kind of greater geographical regions that help us recruit volunteers, that help us schedule blood drives, those types of things. But really, it's the 3 of us that are focused on this chapter, and the rest of the work is really done by volunteers. We, myself included, we're constantly looking for ways that we can, involve our volunteers and move some of the things off of our plate and give it to volunteers to do. I mean, our chapter has some just all-star volunteers. We have a gal that's 75 years old she was just running all of the logistics and the procurement of items for the entire nation when we were welcoming all of the Afghan refugees. And so, she would be the point of contact person. An Army base would contact us and say, we need 75,000 blankets. And she would be the one to take care of that order. So it's really amazing what our volunteers do. It's, a small thing where you can sit and welcome somebody at a blood drive. And as you gain more experience and want to do more things, you might find yourself as boots on the ground in a hurricane response like we saw with Ida and some of these other wildfires and things like that.
Well, we are lucky for sure to have American Red Cross in our community, and you've mentioned so much of the work that you guys do and what you would support. And I do often ask this question of our guests, but what would happen if your organization ceased to exist in our community?
Well, yeah, I think that would be tough. There's a lot that we do that I think is very unique. My hope is that if for some reason the Red Cross ceased to exist, we would see folks that would step up and help the community be resilient. I mean, that would be my hope. And ultimately, we give away a lot of training and a lot of programs to really get to that point where people are doing Red Cross work without necessarily knowing that they're doing Red Cross work. I mean, that's kind of the hope, is we don't have to have our name and brand on anything. We do want to see our communities and neighbors helping each other. And that's really the spirit of the organization. I think, obviously we provide 40% of the nation's blood supply. The hospitals and things like that really depend on us in our community to provide, much needed life-saving blood. Our services to the armed forces is a huge piece. We really walk with folks that enlist in the military from that point of enlistment really through their entire life. We are a resource for them to come, and oftentimes, we have the opportunity to connect them with other organizations, but they trust the brand and know that they're coming to a safe space. So, there's a lot that we do that I think is, incredibly impactful. I think, unfortunately, we've seen, not just in Wayne County, but in our chapter specifically, since the beginning of the year, we've seen just a huge rise in home fires, and we've seen several fatalities, since the 1st of January, that probably didn't have to happen if people had, the right plan in place and smoke alarms installed in their home properly. Those types of things, obviously we're very passionate about. We don't like to see those things happen, but we are there to come alongside those folks. We're dedicated to respond to every disaster in the United States. Within an hour and a half to 2 hours, we'll have a Red Cross person there or on the phone with those people that have been impacted. So it's a huge lift, but we, like I said, we can do it with the volunteers that we have. It's pretty amazing.
Well, you guys are fortunate to have a dedicated base that want to help all of those. So I have a question for you. Your work can be challenging. Obviously, you're going in and seeing people at a time in their lives that's highly traumatic and overwhelming and emotionally charged. What do you like most about what you do?
I think for me, I've always had, really for the last 20 years, I've always had a humanitarian piece of the work that I've done. I really do feel very fortunate to be alongside folks when they're experiencing that low point, and to be somebody that can just listen. I was just down in August with Hurricane Ida. I was in New Orleans and the surrounding area down there, and to just be a point of contact, to hand somebody a bottle of water. We'd come alongside a mom who hadn't, really had a chance to feed her children in, 48 hours, and to be the first one to hand them a protein bar and just listen to their story. I think that's a tremendously rewarding experience. We do have, oftentimes they're not talked about and they're not seen, but we do have some mental health professionals that work not only with our clients, but actually get to come alongside of us and check in on us when we're in that environment, because it is challenging for our staff and our volunteers to, constantly see folks that are experiencing really their lowest point, and potentially their lowest point of their entire lives when they've lost everything. And so it is rewarding to be able to help them kind of take the next step through that process and back to recovery.
Well, fortunately, the American Red Cross is a great organization that provides that service, as you said, nationwide, and we see it time and again. You guys are there, boots on the ground, helping the people just get through it, whatever that means, 1 minute at a time or to the next day. So
right, yeah.
But anyway, well, thank you, Brice. I appreciate you sharing all that about the American Red Cross today. As we wrap up this episode of The Third Sector, I do want to give another thank you to my guests, Teresa Clemmons from A Better Way and Brice Johnson from American Red Cross. Does not want to say that word. Thanks to both of them for coming on and sharing about their organizations and how they support and help our community and the great work that they do. Stay well, and we'll see you next time on The Third Sector.
WayneCounty.info gives you one-click access to local headlines, information, events, photos, opinion, sports, government updates, emergency alerts, obituaries, and more. Sign up for the WayneCounty.info daily news summary email so you don't miss a thing.